Chapter 17. Birth of a Nation. Demon Lord, I wonder which one Gelmid was working for. It's unlikely they'll take his death lightly, so we should probably prepare to enter the world stage sooner rather than later. There's also that girl who sealed Voldora away many years ago. Hard to believe someone like that exists, and yet they're demon lords in this world. Kind of seems counterintuitive. Trainee. What troubles your mind, Millard? Refocusing on the world around me brings to light the fact that everyone's seemingly staring at me. I'm tempted to ask what they're staring at, but after seeing the concern in their eyes, my heart softens, if only just a little. Me. The demon lords, what do you know about them? Trainee. Not much, I'm afraid. I haven't had to interact with much of the outside world since falling under the protection of Lord Voldora. Me. I suppose I should ask him then. I'm sure he'll have valuable intel to share. I turn to begin making my way back home, but am quickly met with obstacles in the form of one very persistent Shuna, reinforced by her two older brothers. Shuna. Lord Rimuru, you still haven't decided. Me. On what? Benimaru. Here, Millard, have a drink. Me. Oh. Thank you. So what's this about? Benimaru. Just a minor. Shuna. You haven't made a decision. Xian. On which one of us will be your first wife? Huh? Shuna. Xian. Xian? Please, I know you're thinking the same thing. Shuna. I. Shuna falls silent, and Xian, like a lion that's cornered its prey, pounces for the kill. Xian? Unless you're saying you aren't interested in our lord. Shuna's eyes go wide at that, but before she gets the chance to respond, Trainee materializes between the two. Trainee. This is neither the time nor place for such discussions. Besides, I thought we already agreed that Lord Rimuru would be the one to decide. Me. As entertaining as seeing you three fight would be, what am I missing here besides your obvious teasing? Trainee. You haven't given your new nation a name. A name, huh? I suppose that is customary when creating a new nation, though I can't think of anything right now. In fact, now that I think about it, aren't we being a little too hasty with this whole create a new nation from scratch thing? I mean, a couple of minutes ago some of us were enemies seeking to wipe out one another, and yet now you're telling me they're cool with living alongside one another? Raphael? Might I make a suggestion? Me. Sure, seems to be all people have been doing today. Raphael? Why not grant the nation a name that implies some level of freedom from the central body? Me. Like an alliance? Raphael? A federation? Me. Yes, I can see it already. The Jura Federation. Raphael? It would be wise to still make it known that it is yours and not merely. Me. So Jura Rimuru Federation, no, Jura Tempest Federation. Brilliant, Raphael. You are a star. Raphael? Thank you. Thank you. Me. The name of this great and prosperous nation shall henceforth be the Jura Tempest Federation. A celebration of the union of friendship between myself and the storm dragon Voldora. Chapter 18. All in a day's work. It's been a few weeks since my declaration leading to the establishment of a new nation. Since then, everyone's been hard at work reorganizing what was initially just the Ogre Village into my new capital city. The name, chosen by popular demand, is Rimuru City. When completed, it'll have a population of just shy of 150,000 inhabitants, with the rest of my nation's population spread out across various smaller towns and villages in the region of the forest, within which we currently maintain control. Offices have already been assigned to the most prominent members at my disposal. However, any keen-eyed observer can see that the nation has been primed towards having a strong military and an economy capable of supporting said military. Still, if I want to take things to the next level, we'll need to open relations with other nations. The others are skeptical in this regard, as most nations are comprised of humans who view us as monsters and would be less likely to consider a nation made up entirely of monsters as an acceptable outcome. Said nations would also be unwilling to trade with us, but unlike my subordinates, I doubt they will prove much of a challenge to overcome. If they refuse to negotiate and cause us trouble, we shall simply put them to the sword like the kings of old. Military? Samurai General? Benimaru? Phoenix General? Hero? Marshal? Hakiru? Civilian? Oni Princess? Shuna? Minister of Internal Affairs? Ono? Minister of Foreign Affairs? Rigard? Inspector General? Saue? I maintain absolute authority over all affairs within the nation. However, militarily, Benimaru is the de facto leader during times of war when I am not present. He handles the defense of Tempest and has complete authority to utilize all means at his disposal to ensure the safety of Tempest. Hiro, on the other hand, is responsible for our offensive campaigns and leads any expeditions abroad, be they significant or otherwise. Hakiru, holding the title of Marshal, is responsible for military training and ensures our military is kept in top shape. I've learned firsthand that he's no joke when it comes to training, so I have no doubt this will result in even the weakest in our army being godly when it comes to fighting. On the civilian front, we have Shuna operating as the de facto leader when I am not present during times of peace. She's also the head of the Ministry of Culture and oversees any festivities within Tempest. Ono, her father and the previous chief of the ogres, is the Prime Minister of Tempest, effectively being the third in command during peacetime. He is also the Minister of Internal Affairs, if only to oversee the department until we find a suitable head to replace him. Rigard is the Minister of Foreign Affairs, a department currently overseen by Shuna, who's been adamant about ensuring our first diplomatic encounter is a success. Lastly, there's Sae, who's been given the position of Inspector General. His department is responsible for all intelligence gathering, assessing threats towards Tempest, and upon receiving authorization, eliminating them covertly. It's only been a few days since they were established, but his department has been extremely efficient so far in this regard, having already completed a full analysis of the entirety of the Great Jura Forest and any remaining threats within it. However, I have yet to view their report as it is currently my day off. I must say, thinking back, I could have probably lightened the load on them a tad by dividing certain ministries further, but that's a thought for future me. Right now, as my head rests in Xian's lap, eyes graced by her bust, there's nothing at all that could. Sae. Lord Rimuru. We need to work on his timing. Me. Yes? Sae. There is a group of knights approaching. They number 300 strong and are riding Pegasi. Me. Do they appear hostile? Sae. Nothing stands out at this time. However, they are fully armored and all armed. Leading them is the dwarven king of the nearby nation of Dworgen. Raphael? He's unlikely to engage in hostilities. The nation of Dworgen generally maintains a defensive stance on the world stage. Me. Have the others gather to meet our guests. I'll be there shortly. Have Shuna take the lead until I arrive. Xian? Trouble? Breaking the conversation with Sae, I look up to find both Xian and Trainee nearby, looking down at me with curious eyes. Xian has taken up the position of head of my security detail and my guardian, much to the dismay of Trainee, and so in a jealous act, the two have been competing to stay by my side ever since. With the latter declaring herself my secretary to give her just as valid a reason to stay with me at all times as Xian. Me. We're about to have some company. Xian. Are they friendly? Me. Only one way to find out. Standing, I offer them both a hand, and each smiles before placing their own in mine. It's going to be quite the day. As long as I have these two with me, however, perhaps it won't be so bad. Chapter 19. King Gazel. We arrive in the clearing to see a man who is the embodiment of the opposite of what I was expecting. When one hears dwarf or dwarven, who the hell thinks of this? The man is larger than the horse. Well, Pegasus, but who cares? How does the physics of what I'm seeing even work, and how the hell is this man a dwarf? Gazel? Judging by everyone's reaction to your arrival, you must be the master of this group, yes? Me. Ruler, actually, and you are trespassing. Gazel? Ruler, I wasn't aware there was any nation within the Great Jura Forest. Me. There is one now, and by bringing your army here, you've technically just invaded it. Gazel? Ha. My army? These are naught but my trusty brothers in arms. My guard, nothing more. Me. Oh? Gazel? I heard rumors of a being who defeated a disaster-class threat and so thought it worth the while to at least see what the uproar was all about. Me. You, the king of a nation, went on a stroll based on a rumor? Gazel? You don't live as long as I have without keeping an eye on things, especially when they're right next door. Me. Well, if that was all, how about merrily being on your way? Gazel? The fiend dismounts, and so too does his guard. None draw their swords, however, so I refrain from acting rashly. There's no particular need to start yet another war so soon after the last. Gazel? If you are to become my new neighbor, then I must at the very least test your worth. Me. My worth? Gazel? It will take a truly mighty man or woman, in more ways than one, to rule over this forest. I must ensure you have what it takes. So face me. He draws his sword, and the others reach for their weapons in response, but a quick wave of the hand has them stand down. I'll deal with this myself. Gazel? You're braver than most. I'll give you that. Me? Trainee, can you? Voldora? Rahahahaha. Voldora lands with a boom that sends shockwaves across the opening. He's still in his human form, but with his aura seeping out and him bellowing his name at the top of his lungs, Gazel and those with him quickly figure out who he is. Voldora? Mortal, you are right to recognize my buddy Rimuru as the one true master of this nation. Now I, the Storm Dragon Voldora Tempest reborn in this body thanks to the efforts of my buddy Rimuru Tempest, shall be the judge of your match. Gazel looks like he shat himself, but somehow manages to hold his ground. The men he brought with him? They aren't so lucky. As if being battered by F5 tornado-level winds, they're all blown away. Gazel? I see. So the rumors for once were true. Voldora? HMMMMM? Voldora turns his gaze towards Gazel, giving him his undivided attention, and I swear I physically see the air pressure around Gazel force him down into a kneeling stance. Powerless before true power, he's like a whipped pup, but Voldora himself seems oblivious to the effects of his actions. Me? Now that we have a witness, come at me. Gazel grits his teeth, grabs his fallen sword, and charges. Right as he's about to attack, however, he vanishes. Raphael? Behind? True to her word, his attack comes from behind, but bounces off my hand so hard it sends him flying backward, leaving him open to my attack. To start, I simply swing my right foot around to kick him in the chest, but before my foot arrives, the air it displaces does, and that air blasts Gazel into a nearby tree. Me? You know. For one who talked so high and mighty, I was expecting a bit more. I have my sword still strapped to my waist, but make no move for it. If this is the extent of his power, then I certainly won't need it. Still, I thought this was effectively a friendly sparring match. If I weren't strong, he'd have cut my hand off, wouldn't he? Raphael? King Gazel likely knew the attack would not harm me. What? Raphael? If he desired to kill, he would have gone for the head. Me? Then was it a trick? Gazel? Raya? I barely even notice the direction his attack comes from before my hands grab the sword and swing up, blocking the attack just in time as it comes crashing down towards the top of my head. The sheer force of the attack cracks the ground beneath me, but my stance holds. Me, thanks for the assist, Raphael. Raphael? I exist to serve, master. Voldora? Marvelous. Splendid. Perfection. Trainee? Stop. The fight is over. Me? Huh? Voldora? Huh? Trainee? Lord Rimuru wins. All. Hoo. Gazel? She's right. You've beaten even my best move. I have nothing left but to concede defeat. Me? Is that so? A pity. Man, I'm so lucky to have Raphael. I'd be a goner if she didn't assist during that last attack. Me? You know, you're rather strong. Gazel? The same can certainly be said of you. The name's Gazel Dwargo, king of the armed nation of Dworgen. Me? Rimuru Tempest, king of the Jura Tempest Federation. Chapter 19.5. King Gazel Part 2. King Gazel, he's strong. As I sit across from him, Shuna pouring us some tea with promises of ale later in the evening, he exudes nothing but power. It flows freely from him in waves, even Raphael can sense it. It must be a skill. Gazel? So, Rimuru, what would you say to a trade agreement between our nations? Me? That sounds like an excellent idea. Gazel? It does, doesn't it? What would you trade? Me? Well, that's something I'd need to think about. So far, we produce much of everything, but as I hadn't thought about trading with others, it merely fulfills the need of our people and nothing more. Gazel? That's no good. Every nation needs trading, even if only as a means to open diplomatic channels. Me? I've found military strength to be far more valuable. Gazel? Oh? He casts a glance out to the courtyard where Xian is busy training some young Kijin to become warriors. Benimaru and Hiro are with her but seem perfectly content to stand by and watch. Gazel? You have amassed quite the force so far. Me? I'm glad you. Gazel? However, what use is an army if you cannot feed, clothe, and arm it? Me? I'm more than. Gazel? If everyone's busy fighting, then who will man the fields? Who will tend to the workbench? Me? A fair point. However, we could still technically use the military to conquer another nation and then press said populace into fulfilling those roles for us. Gazel? So you'd create a nation that would succeed in rallying the entire world against it. Me? Are you suggesting we couldn't win if I did? Gazel? Even if, and I do mean if, that were possible. He pauses as if considering his next words very carefully. Gazel? I don't think that's in your plans. Me? Well, you aren't wrong. Gazel? So what is your objective then? Me? To simply enjoy my new life. Gazel? Don't we all? Me? Gazel? Wish to enjoy life, that is. However, it doesn't. Me? I meant what I said. That's my only goal. All my actions are taken in support of this goal. Silence permeates the pavilion to the point that Shuna, who had finally returned with the ale, visibly shows her discomfort. Gazel? Ha 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 ha. You're quite the interesting man, I'll give you that. Me? Oh? Shuna pours him a glass before placing one before me. Gazel? What's this? Me? Ale. Gazel? Ale? I've never seen this ale before. Me? Taste it and tell me if you'd be willing to trade for it. Gazel? Ale? We have plenty of. His voice cuts off shortly after the glass touches his lips. Me? Shuna, would you mind sorting out the contract details with our guest? King Gazel's expression changes to one of the purest forms of joy to ever be displayed. He's like a newborn babe laughing for the first time. Nothing but stars in his eyes, he's not even aware that I've gotten up until Xian comes into the pavilion even drunker than he is. Xian? My lord, make low. Shuna. Xian. Xian? Oog. Jealous much. Shuna goes red. As she tries to clear the misunderstanding, Gazel jumps up with a shout. Gazel? Rimuru, you have a deal. I trade you anything for this ale. What is it called? Me? Haha. That's actually not an accurate depiction of what it is. Gazel? Huh? He stares at the cup as if it has a label for him to read, but I simply laugh some more. Me? It's a trade secret.